We're taught to believe mankind has discovered every secret of the Earth. I don't know if this is by design or by accident, but when you grew up, didn't you feel like you were so lucky to live in the time where we know everything? We ponder extraterrestrial questions like how the universe began and what it means, while so much mystery remains down here with us, and especially down below us. Nobody tells you when you're a kid how little we really know about the majority of our planet. Like how there are hundreds of thousands of miles of ocean that are totally unexplored, never investigated by humans. At least, none who returned to tell us what they found. But growing up, didn't you think we'd discovered every creature under the sea? I sure did. I know you'll find my story hard to believe. I'm not here to convince you it's true because it doesn't matter to me whether you believe it or not. My only hope is that by telling you, you won't be as surprised when everything we think we know about the ocean is turned on its head someday, and that if you have a family, people who care about you, you might think twice before venturing onto or over the expansive unknown of the ocean. I signed on to a bulk carrier sailing from Oakland Port in the San Francisco Bay Area as a watchstander AB, which stands for Able Seaman. That's because I've been a sailor for about 3 years now. Well, 2 at the time all of this took place. When I'm done, you'll probably be thinking, wait, you're still going out in the ocean? Yeah. Yes, I am. Before I share why with any hope you'll understand my reasoning, I need to tell you the whole story. A watchstander's job is to keep watch. Duh. In my case, on that particular voyage, I was the bridge lookout with Deborah Maddox, the deck officer primarily responsible for safe navigation. Typically, watchstanding made for easy but boring work. When the chief mate, Bodie Webb, allowed it, I worked overtime doing cosmetic maintenance on the ship. I scraped a lot of paint out there at sea. But the rest of the time I could be found in my bunk reading or in the gym lifting weights. When you're not actively working on a big ship like that, it's not so different from staying in a cheap hotel. A really cheap hotel. It was Deborah who initially spotted the jet as it flew past us. Planes flew over us all the time, but we always called out to each other when we saw one. To be honest, there isn't a whole lot else to spot out in the middle of the Pacific, so why not? It was I who noticed how low the plane appeared as it shrunk in the distant sky. Hang on, why is it dropping like that? I asked. Like what? Asked Deborah. Look. It's going down, see that? Deborah peered through her binoculars. She tisked and said, Beats me, you're right. They're flying pretty low and... descending? I got on the radio. Hey, Chief, you want to get up to the bridge? We've spotted a jetliner flying low. Over. That's all. Over. Bodie radioed back. Deborah responded, You should see how low this thing is. Over. Bodie could never have reached the bridge in time to see the plane while it was still in the air. As if attempting to recreate Sully Sullenberger's famous landing on the Hudson River, only in even deadlier circumstances, the pilot glided the jetliner down slowly without opening the landing gear. Into the radio, I stated, He's gonna land it. Over. Bodie burst onto the bridge at the same moment a giant white cloud of sea spray erupted in the distance, concealing the plane's graceful but still brutal impact. Okay, I gotta get the captain, Bodie said. Immediately, he called into his radio, Captain, we've got a jet down in the water. Port bow, over. Deborah said, I'll put out the SOS. We heard Captain Moses Hughes' salt-worn voice through Bodie's radio reply, I see it port side. That thing's huge. A 787 maybe? Must be over 200 people on it. Over. Then his voice boomed loud over the ship's global intercom system. All crew, this is your captain. Begin emergency rescue procedures. All personnel on board prepare to assist a downed flight portside. Bodhi said, "Okay, you two keep an eye on that plane while I go rally the troops. Got your Gumby suits?" I replied, "Down in my bunk. Think we'll need them?" Bodhi replied, "Guess you'd better hope not," and left the bridge. The only reason I would need my Gumby suit, which are protective suits designed for cold water immersion, would be if I somehow ended up overboard. Bodhi's suggestion I might need it implied how nervous the plane's inexplicable landing had already made him. Our ship turned slowly towards the plane. We watched a puffy yellow tongue explode outward in front of one of the wings. It was supposed to be a ramp, but it floated next to and, at some points, above the fuselage in the waves. People no bigger than bugs started scrambling out onto the ramp. So many, it began to sink. Already it appeared a few of the passengers were falling into the water. If we hurried, though, I thought we might still be able to rescue them. Bodhi's voice came over the radio, sounding appropriately tense. "Engine team is saying they hear a sound outside the hull. Maddox, Hubbard, you seeing anything? Over." I looked at Deborah. She looked at me, and we both shrugged. I started scanning the water while she replied over the radio. Passengers were now climbing onto the wings. Most exited through the emergency hatches, but a few of the poor souls who had fallen off the ramp found hands reaching down from above to pull them up to relative safety on the wings too. "Wonder where that plane came from," I said. Deborah shrugged again. "San Fran, Seattle, I don't know. Could be almost anywhere along the coast. Why?" "Just wondering. Think we'll use the cranes to get him out?" Deborah said. "You ask a lot of questions when you're nervous?" "I do." "Okay, one more. What do you think the engine team's hearing?" Deborah actually took a moment to think about that one, then answered, "Might be echoes from the impact, maybe. Engine noise from the plane or something like that. Why, what do you think?" Before I could answer, Bodhi spoke to us over our radios. "No rescue teams in the area. We're all they've got. It's up to us. Let's get everyone on board as quickly as possible and take anybody who's hurt to the medical officer. Over." "Well, he's going to be swamped," said Deborah. "Adrian? Yeah, I wouldn't want to be him," I replied, referring to the ship's medical officer, Adrian Sartori. He had to deal with plenty of bumps and bruises, digestive issues, sore muscles, etc., and did so with appreciated expertise, but dealing with 200 potentially hypothermic plane crash victims? An entire emergency room staff would find that an overwhelming endeavor. Bodhi called. "Watchstanders, do you see anything? I'm hearing navigation's gone schizo. Over." His measured tone sounded nervous at the end. Deborah and I gave the perimeter another scan, and I returned. "Nothing, Chief. What's that about navigation? Over." "Hey, do you hear that?" Deborah suddenly asked. A second later, I detected what worried her. A sound fitting every definition of the word deep rumbled up from below. In timbre, it mimicked a larger species of whale pitched numerous octaves down. It reminded me of a cello with strings as thick as ship's masts. Deborah and I stood silently, our eyes locked, as the sound's velocity grew and then began to subtly fade. Our eyes remained connected until I noticed a large motion out of the corner of my eye. "Oh God, look!" I shouted. We did not need our binoculars to see the shallow, triangular waves multiplying toward the stranded flight. I hesitate to describe the waves as shallow, lest I accidentally fool you into thinking they were small like the wake of a stalking shark. Oh no, let me assure you, this wake, I kid you not, spanned 3/4 the length of our carrier. And that's not even the harrowing part. Whatever gigantic thing, massive enough to leave that wake, did so from deep enough below the surface that Deborah and I saw no change in the water's color as it passed below us. In a moment, the bridge seemed to be swiped out from beneath us as the wake yanked our boat after its direction. Without thinking, and certainly without sparing a second to debate the morality of this decision, I grabbed my radio and yelled, "Get us the hell away from that plane, now!" I'm not sure there was much anyone could have done to control our trajectory at that point, though. "Vortex!" Deborah shouted at me. I did not see the vortex so much as I noticed the plane, its wings loaded with soaked passengers of all ages, beginning to spin. With each degree of rotation, passengers slipped off of the wings. Some were lucky enough to land on the yellow ramp, but then it, too, began losing people. I watched too many to count vanish beneath it, sucked down by overwhelming force. One of the wings snapped off, spilling everyone who'd found safety on top of it into the inverted cone quickly swelling beneath the plane. The plane quit spinning on its axis and, instead, started twirling around the edge of the vortex, nose down. By the time the second wing came into my view again, there was no one left on it. I briefly caught a glimpse through my binoculars of the captain still in the cockpit, probably making valiant calls for help right up to his final moment. The plane vanished in mid-spin, which gave us a terrifying hint at how deep the spiraling cone went. I could not possibly imagine at that point in time what on earth possessed the capability to create such a massive swirl. A knot in gravity itself? The whirlpool looked large enough to swallow our carrier, and we were losing our fight to escape its draw. We were spared from certain doom by what I can only assume was the very cause of the vortex. It looked like the peaks of two stony mountains emerging in unison on opposite ends of the spiral. "What is this, some kind of earthquake?" Deborah demanded. I said, "I don't know." The mountain's exteriors teemed with life. Coral, barnacles. I even saw a few fish tumble out of the growths on the mountain's sides as they rose above the top of the water. Between them, the vortex slowed and closed, leaving no trace of the plane or anyone who had been on board. Then, the mountains began to close together. Our ship slowed enough for the crew to get us turned away from the stony jaws, which was good, because we were probably within 2 minutes of getting crushed beneath them on our previous trajectory. More creatures fell off into the water below as the enormous jaws slammed shut. One I saw was an octopus dislodged by the tremendous vibrations from the impact. The waves which rippled out from the god-proportioned monster lifted our carrier, I'm not sure, 50 feet? And when we dropped again, the bridge quite literally fell out from under me. I landed on it once the ship splashed back down again, tumbling onto my side before scrambling back to my feet. A few of the unfortunate crew on deck, standing by for the canceled rescue, went overboard in their Gumby suits and needed to be rescued. They would be, but not until those closed mountains vanished beneath the surface. We heard the cello sound once more. Then, miraculously, it left us alone. Deborah helped spot the overboard sailors while I scanned for any signal of the monster's return. Monster. It's the right word, but it feels completely inadequate. And I'm not entirely convinced it's totally accurate either. When the thing, whatever it was, opened its jaws, it created a vortex so large even Hollywood would lose credibility for portraying it. To do such a thing It would have needed to open those mountainous jaws so far beneath the surface, the pressure would have crushed anything man-made. Yet it opened them so fast, and with enough force to create a sucking spiral on the surface, God knows how far above it. My dear fellow citizens of this earth, I'm here to tell you that I'm not convinced what I saw was just a prehistoric or alien creature. It seems, in hindsight, it may have been the jaws of the ocean floor itself that we saw swallow that plane and all of those helpless people that day. Sacrifices selected and claimed mere minutes before I, myself, and all of the crew might have been chosen instead. Why? Why would the earth or the sea or whatever entity the jaws represented want or need to consume those people? How? How did it bring the plane down and, I assume, interfere with our navigation systems? When? When will it happen again? I hear about planes and ships going missing all of the time. These are not common occurrences per se when you look at the total number of flights and voyages, but they are somewhat frequent. I've been studying the disappearances, eliminating those with obvious causes, and searching for any rhythm or pattern to those left over. My hope is that one day soon I will devise a method of predicting where the next sacrifice will be claimed in order to warn anyone who might find themselves within the gargantuan grasp of the thing from the seabed. And I have another reason behind this goal. It's why you'll still find me most days out on the ocean, working one ship or another. I think I would like to see that vortex again. I want to look down into it this time, to see what's inside. I know this would likely mean my death, possibly in some long and agonizing way. But some nights I lie awake thinking I would prefer to die knowing the truth than be tortured in wonder for the rest of my life. I lost touch with Deborah and Bodie and Captain Hughes, as well as everyone else aboard the carrier that day. That's just sort of how it goes in this business. Most of the people you sail with, you'll never see again. I wish I might run into one of them again, anyone I knew to be on the ship that day. I want to know what they think it was. I want to know if they crave answers as strongly as I do. Sometimes, I wonder if I'll come across one of their names when I'm researching disappearances at sea. I will leave you after mentioning something I'm sure will come to mind as you ponder my story, interrogating its validity. It is not lost on me that we were sailing the Pacific Ocean, whose floor is wrinkled with fault lines prone to regular shifts. Undersea earthquakes are the most common explanation for deep-sea noises like the one I heard that day, and so perhaps the mountainous jaws were only underwater mountains after all. Perhaps. And could that explain the navigation disruption, not only to us, but to the plane? Perhaps. One thing keeps me convinced that what we all witnessed that day was a conscious action of some demigod beast. I still hear its sounds in my dreams, only now I believe I'm hearing them clearer. What I hear now is no mindless drone. What I hear is that great monster saying my name, calling to me from the black depths of the ocean. You made it out. Congratulations. If you enjoyed the story, please rate, like, review, or subscribe. For ad-free episodes and bonus Into the Woods episodes, become a patron with the link in the description. You can also support the show by buying merch. That link is also in the description below. To stay up to date, follow me on Instagram at The Warning Woods. If you feel ready, meet me here next week for another journey into the Warning Woods. Thank you for listening.